Gallery Studios in downtown Little Rock. This is Capitol View with your host, David Goins.
And good Sunday morning to you. Welcome into Capitol View. I'm David Goins. Thanks for being with us. Arkansas's candidates for governor taking their message to the people on Friday night right here. And we'll break down all that with our political long table. Jessica DeLoach and Alice Stewart get their instant analysis from Friday night. Plus, GOP Chairman Reince Priebus joins us this morning to talk about the Arkansas Senate race. And that is where we start with the latest ad from Republican Tom Cotton. Now, Cotton defending a controversial decision to go against the Arkansas congressional delegation and vote against the farm bill. On his family farm, Cotton says lessons he learned from his father motivated that vote.
He taught me early. Farmers can't spend more than they take in. And I listened. When President Obama hijacked the farm bill, turned it into a food stamp bill with billions more in spending, I voted no. Career politicians love attaching bad ideas to good ones. Then the bad ideas become law, and you pay for it.
PolitiFact on Friday rating that ad pants on fire, pointing out that food stamps have been a part of every farm bill since 1973. A spokesperson for Senator Mark Pryor's office his campaign criticized the Cotton ad, saying in part that Congressman Cotton has no shortage of flatly false excuses for his reckless votes against Arkansas farmers, ranchers, and rural families. Disability rights protesters taking to the streets of Little Rock this week. Starting on Sunday, the national group ADAPT held demonstrations and sit-ins across the city. These arrests coming from Wednesday. You can see that there. The goal, increase awareness leading to the passage of what's called the Community First Choice option that would allow those with a disability the resources needed to receive therapy and services at home instead of a nursing home. Now, at Republican governor candidate Asa Hutchinson's Little Rock headquarters, there were more than a dozen arrests made. Quite a different scene somewhat at Mike Ross's campaign headquarters. The campaign there allowing the demonstrators inside, and a spokesperson for the candidate said he is in favor of CFCO. Now, demonstrators say lawmakers need to see their faces and struggles.
A lot of times the image is that people with disabilities need to be taken care of, and they really don't. What they need are the community-based services that they can direct, because most people with disabilities can do that, and live as everyone else in society does.
A spokesman for Hutchinson's office said Asa Hutchinson was unavailable when they showed up at his campaign headquarters. Now, Little Rock police made a total of 61 arrests in connection to the three-day protest, but protesters feel their message was heard. The Community First Choice option expected to be discussed when lawmakers return to the Capitol next January. Lawmakers ordering a closer look at Arkansas scholarship lottery. A legislative committee on Friday approving a consultant that oversees the UK lottery to take a closer look at the management structure of the lottery here in Arkansas. Now, at least one lawmaker expressed frustration with a lottery designed to fund thousands of scholarships. That has happened, but is also dealing with 5 years of declining revenues.
I think any time that you see declining trends from whenever you had $100 million in sales and then it's down to what is projected to be 78, which is a projection for this year, I would guess, yes, I would say that I would consider that to be unstable.
The consultant group Camelot now has 5 weeks to complete their assessment of Arkansas's lottery. And lawmakers give the go-ahead on a $1 million contract designed to assess the best and most cost-effective way to get high-speed internet into Arkansas's classrooms. Now, most school districts in the natural state do have broadband access, but lawmakers say many districts don't know how to get the service without excess cost. Now, the legislature asking a North Little Rock company on Monday to see if districts are ready to connect to broadband internet.
We just have to make sure that we do it in a responsible way for the taxpayers, and so that we don't go down a road that winds up costing us a tremendous amount of money and really doesn't deliver the bang for the buck.
And on this contract, lawmakers are expecting the company to complete their assessment by December 1st. They'll decide on the issue when the legislative session starts in January. Well, coming up after a quick break, GOP Chairman Reince Priebus joins us. We'll talk about the Senate race and one of the top GOP candidates across the country, Tom Cotton, here in Arkansas. I'm David Goins. You're watching Capitol View on Sunday.
Looking for one of these?
Yoplait, smooth, creamy, and craved by the whole family.
Now here's a good-looking fall lineup. And right now,
You can score these incredible designs and more for less during the fall clearance sale at Furniture Row. Whether you're looking for a dining room set, comfy sofa, colorful accent chair, stylish bed, or new mattress, there isn't a better time to find furniture you'll love. Beautiful designs, comfortable prices, Furniture Row.
Get it at 22 and a half, now 2,500.
Attention Lake Hamilton buyers and waterfront developers. Once in a lifetime opportunity to own a piece of Housley Point on Lake Hamilton. 6 choice lake lots, all with incredible views, city utilities, and in Lakeside School District. A grand total of 2.75 acres and 1,165 feet of Lake Hamilton frontage. Every lot selling regardless of price to the highest bidder Thursday, October 16th at 11 a.m. For more information, go to wilsonauctioneers.com.
I have sold it, sold it, sold it.
Did you know it's over 1,000 miles from Arkansas to Washington? But Washington's ideas are a lot further away than that. From Obamacare to the EPA's burdensome regulations on Arkansas farmers, big government is running the country into a ditch. I'm Leslie Rutledge, and I've had enough. I will stand up to Obama and fight for Arkansas values. It's about time we give them a new direction.
In Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
And welcome back to Capitol View. I'm David Goins. In case you haven't noticed at this point, the Arkansas Senate and governor's race getting a lot of attention nationally. Joining me this morning, we'll have a bit of a national perspective from Republican National Committee Chairman Reince Priebus. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Priebus, from Washington.
Hey, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Let's start with that kind of national perspective. The state of Arkansas has seen several big-name Republicans over the last few weeks. Mitt Romney has come into the state, as well as Chris Christie. From a GOP perspective, is the thought that Arkansas voters will respond to these out-of-state big-name Republicans?
Well, I mean, some of it is to get your base fired up, too, and to speak to people that are working so hard on behalf of the candidates and tell them thank you. And I was just there myself a month ago, and that was really the purpose of me being there. I think Arkansas makes the decisions for Arkansas, and I think given the situation there in the Senate and Mark Pryor's record of supporting Obama, who is certainly not very popular in Arkansas, but it's more the policies of Obamacare, the policies of what we think to be an amnesty policy, and so many other issues. Tom Cotton just offers a fresher approach. But to your question, that's not national folks saying here's what you should do. It's their choice, but clearly it's important to the direction of our country that we have Tom Cotton get elected there so that we can kind of get this country back on track.
Let's talk a little bit about that U.S. Senate race with Tom Cotton and Mark Pryor. I know a majority of the emphasis from the Cotton campaign has been on Pryor's connection to the president and his support of the Affordable Care Act, but we've seen some of that perhaps ferocity towards the Affordable Care Act. I don't want to say wane, but maybe not be as as intense over the last couple months. What other issues do you see as being key in this race, or is it simply the Affordable Care Act will be enough for Tom Cotton to perhaps unseat Mark Pryor?
No, it's just, obviously it's just one issue, but I mean, you look at Tom Cotton's record in the House. I mean, the House passed over 350 jobs bills that are sitting on the Senate side of the aisle, and many of those bills, just to make sure we're clear, a lot of those bills were actually written by and drafted by Democrats. Most of those bills were passed by a bipartisan vote, and most of those votes were by a 2/3 majority in the House. Tom Cotton got the job done in the House. Those bills sat on Harry Reid's desk for the entire cycle. Where was Mark Pryor? Where was he publicly calling on Harry Reid to do something different? If Mark Pryor is such an independent voice, then where is he?
All right, let's talk real quick about Tom Cotton's record in the House. We can both agree it's short. He's just elected in 2012, and obviously some votes against the Farm Bill, against funding for Arkansas Children's Hospital when it was at its critical juncture, when the funding was attached to it. I know his campaign has talked about other votes that he said would fund that type of research. Those are votes that are probably something he has to answer for at this point, correct?
Well, and I think he is answering for it. I mean, part of the problem with the Farm Bill was that it had a little less to do with farming than it had to do with other topics, and I think that's important. I think you obviously dealing with issues in regard to agriculture are important. It's important to where I'm from in Wisconsin. It's important to you all in Arkansas. But what happened on the Farm Bill was a hijacking by Barack Obama, and Mark Pryor, of course, is just going to be a rubber stamp for Barack Obama. So granted, I mean, these are things that candidates debate. I'm not taking that away from you, David, but I think ultimately these elections come down to, number one, the performance of the incumbent, which I think Mark Pryor's had some problems. I think we can agree with that and squaring with the electorate in Arkansas, but also comes to the general direction of the economy, which I don't think most people think is going in the right direction, the debt, and what our future is for our kids and grandkids. And so, you know, I think most people in this country, putting politics aside, think that we need to get our act together and get this country back on the rails. And part of the problem is that nothing's happening in the United States Senate, and Mark Pryor just happens to be an important piece of a do-nothing Senate, which is why I think he needs to go, and why I think ultimately Arkansas is a great opportunity for Tom Cotton and a great opportunity for our country. Okay, so if the Republican Party, let's just play out the scenario that you pick up to 6 seats in November to obtain control of the Senate. You talk about getting it back on the rails. A lot of people see Congress as ineffective. We've all seen the ratings down, 20, even in the teens for approval rating. What changes with a 51-49 Republican Senate when you know, as we've seen, it takes almost a supermajority to get anything done in that chamber? Well, clearly it doesn't solve everything, but I think what it does do is that it allows you to pass those 350 bills, or at least some of them. Obviously, there are cloture issues with some types of bills, as you know, but many of those bills, 100, 150 of those bills we put on the president's desk, and I think he's going to have to, by sheer pressure, sign some of them, which will help. Like Keystone Pipeline, I think, helps when it comes to jobs. I think when it comes to issues of health care, when it comes to education, I think you can box the president in on some issues, because a lot of those things that are sitting on the Senate side of the aisle are things that both Republicans and Democrats agree with. So certainly I understand the premise of your point, and I think part of that is true. But you can pass a budget, as you know, with a Senate that is under control. We've done 5 or 6 budgets on the House side, only 1 passed on the Senate side. You can start getting your debt trajectory under control. So I mean, there are things that can happen to help the economy get on track and help some jobs bills get through that are ultimately going to help people across the country. While we've got less than a minute here, I just wanted to mention that Mark Pryor has said he supports a Keystone Pipeline. That could be one of those areas you talked about with Republican and Democrat bipartisan support. We'll see where that goes. But really here in the last 60 seconds or so, the ground game, both Republicans and Democrats have talked about the strength of their canvassing, the registering to vote as it relates to the Senate race. How critical will that be, do you feel, on November 4th? Well, I think it's to me, it's everything. I mean, I think the ground game, the execution of identifying voters and getting them to the polls, albeit through technology and sheer hard work, is something that I think both parties have gotten very sophisticated at. But, it's no different than what Abraham Lincoln said many years ago. He said, find every Whig and get them to the polls. Now, that's basic stuff, but that's what parties do. We just happen to have a whole lot of more sophisticated ways of getting that done, and it's the same thing that you're going to see in Arkansas. Okay, we'll watch it closely over these last 6 weeks. RNC Chairman Reince Priebus, thanks so much for joining us this morning from Washington. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Hey, you too. Thank you. Absolutely. Okay, when we come back, we're going to break down all the action from Friday night here in Little Rock. Analysis from our long table that came immediately after Asa Hutchison and Mike Ross wrapped up their debate. That is coming up next. I'm David Goins. You have Capitol View on Sunday morning.
Nature Valley Crunchy Granola Bars give you energy from 1/3 of your daily whole grains. So 1/3 of this commercial is dedicated to what you could do with all that energy. Energy for getting dizzy at the beach.
My mornings are definitely not routine, and that can take a lot of energy.
Nature Valley Breakfast Biscuits. 4 biscuits, 26 grams of whole grains that give you the energy to help keep you going.
I love Nature Valley Breakfast Biscuits.
Hello, I'm a kid, and us kids have an important message for our grown-ups. 3 grams can, a soluble fiber from whole grain oat foods like Cheerios can help lower cholesterol. And where can you find beta-glucan? In oats. And they're yummy. I'm going back to being a kid now. Thank you.
Many people are very concerned about where they're going to have health coverage.
When Mark Pryor said that we would be able to keep our doctor, we'd be able to keep our insurance, he flat out lied to the American people.
A lot of the decisions he makes falls right alongside of Obama. He's more worried about supporting his friends in Washington than really taking care of the people that he's supposed to represent.
People that are supposed to represent us, they need to be making a difference.
Freedom Partners Action Fund is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Why did we get up so early?
Because it's not too hot.
Is this enough?
Give me that.
Do fish sleep? Do worms have belly buttons? What's the biggest number? Are there sharks in here? When are we gonna catch one? How long is soon? When is patient over?
Hey, we're gonna do some fishing, huh?
How do we know for sure we're going to heaven?
KARK4 and Chick-fil-A of Central Arkansas have joined forces to honor those who are making a difference.
Join me Tuesday at 10 as we pay it forward to another deserving Arkansan.
Pay it forward. Brought to you by Chick-fil-A of Central Arkansas.
All of us here today welcome Aaron Nolan to the KARK4 Today family. Weekday mornings at 5 on KARK4.
Hey, Suey, Razorbacks. That's it? That's all there is?
Watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
And welcome back to Capitol View. I'm David Goins, our Sunday morning talk transitioning to Friday night Capitol View. We are we'll change of clothes here and talking about this debate between Mike Ross and Asa Hutchinson. Joining us, we're just minutes after the debate wrapped up from Fresh Talk 96.5, Alice Stewart, thank you so much for being here. Jessica Deloach, Democratic strategist, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, we just saw the debate. It just wrapped up. First off, impressions. Jessica, I'll start with you. Just overall, how did these two do?
I love a good debate, and this was a great debate tonight. It got a little heated, but not too heated. It was enjoyable. I think Mike Ross did a tremendous job at laying out exactly where he stands on certain issues. He was so strong tonight, and I think that's going to resonate very well with his base and with undecided voters, and that's a big group of people.
Alice, some quick takeaways.
I think we clearly saw we have two really nice guys running for governor, so we're fortunate in that regard. I take away, we saw Mike Ross continuing to touch on family and talk about his mom and dad at the beginning, at the end, and really personalize himself. Asa Hutchinson focused in on reinforcing his commitment to middle-class Arkansans, and he wove that in throughout the entire debate. We also heard from Mike Ross repeatedly wrapping his arms, both arms, around Mike Beebe, and we saw Mike Ross doing that. And so it's just a different style, but it was a good contrast between the two candidates and really hitting on the key issues.
Right, we talked about this, you mentioned both, generally nice guys. It didn't seem like, at least from where I was sitting, that either one of them, it comes natural for them to really kind of go at the other. What was your kind of thoughts of some of their barbs?
They did. They tried. They went a few times. A few of the takeaways when Asa Hutchinson really pushed on Mike Ross about his voting for Nancy Pelosi and supporting Nancy Pelosi, hammered home on that. Mike Ross got really defensive about that. Asa saying, don't get so defensive about your support for Nancy Pelosi. That was a big pushback. And then we saw from the other side, we saw Mike Ross was hitting Congressman Hutchinson on the ads, but they did, when there was an opportunity for them to reinforce the distinction and the contrast between the two, they pulled out the boxing glove.
Yeah, Jessica, they talked about, generally speaking, how their ads were positive, and then it quickly turned into each room talking about it. Yeah, negative right away.
Right. And I mean, there have been a lot of positive ads. The negativity has come mostly from outside of the state. But we both know, just as Mike Ross pointed out, it was like, hey, you know what? The Republican Governors Association made the decision to attack my wife. And he even asked Asa Hutchinson to apologize.
Is it fair to ask the other candidate? I mean, neither one of them are responsible for either one.
Hey,
right?
I think you can put it out there and you can say, hey, do you want to apologize to my wife?
Sure.
I never expect anyone to apologize just because doesn't happen.
When you have outside groups or the National Party doing ads against your opponent, you cannot coordinate. It's a violation of the campaign rules. You can't coordinate. So even if he wanted to, he couldn't coordinate with them and take that down. So that was just a nice play for the cameras, but it's just not feasible.
Sure. Okay. Issues. You talked about how Ross was a little more biographical because a lot of his ads have been very issue-based. There hasn't been that tar paper shack from Mike Beebe, or just from at least from Ross's standpoint. So do you feel, I mean, obviously from a Republican standpoint, but do you feel that Ross maybe did a good job of being a little more personable in this debate than he has maybe in some of his other appearances?
I think so, and that's his nature. I mean, he's a personable guy, and he's a great retail politician. I think Asa Hutchinson showed once again his bona fide credentials to be the governor of the state. We saw similar plans, as you know, with similar jobs and education plans. I saw the real contrast when we came to talking about taxes, where Asa made the point that his tax plan is targeted for middle-class Arkansans, and it's feasible and doable and reasonable, and pointing out that Mike Ross's is too broad, not feasible, and not workable. And that, I felt, was the takeaway from tonight, one of the big contrasts between the two.
It's interesting. You know, one of the things I was kind of picking up, and I don't know if you did, Jessica, as well, is that idea of, you know, talking about middle class and affordable, but how do you clearly maybe define those two terms? Because I think it's different depending on who you talk to.
Well, I think whenever 40% of the middle class doesn't feel the impact of your tax cuts, you're not talking to the middle class, which just shows that you're out of touch with what you think the middle class is. I mean, Mike Ross did a really great job at saying, you know what, I am a representative of Arkansas. I did grow up in these circumstances. I know what it means to work hard for what you have. He does want to go out of his way to work for the working poor, and there is a considerable amount of working poor in our state. And the middle class, also redefining what that means. You don't need to redefine it so much as you need to acknowledge that it exists. And your tax plans, if you're going to create a tax plan and you're going to call it a middle class tax cut or whatever you want to call it, make sure it does that. If it doesn't, then it's a joke.
And you also, on that note, you can't have it too broad. His is too broad, and but if you crunch the numbers, it's not feasible. And
his being Ross, you're talking about.
Mike Ross is too broad. And Asa's point being, you can't promise all things to all people. You have to be a little bit more targeted. Mike Ross continued to say, priority number one, I'm going to balance the budget. That's what I'm going to do. The legislature has to do that. That's not his grand idea as a governor. That's the legislature's responsibility. So I don't know why he kept bringing that up, because that's going to happen regardless.
Well, and he did bring up, you know, when I asked him, like, this tax cut, targeted as it is, the income tax cut for Hutchison, it doesn't affect more than half the population. I got the sense he thought it did.
His point that he kept reinforcing, it's targeted and to a specific group of people. I believe the numbers are 25,000 to 75,000, and that's a more targeted tax plan, because he wants to do something in phases and steps, and a progressive plan, and one that works, as opposed to promising something to everyone and it not working in the end. And he made the same point when talking about health care. We need to make sure that financially it works for the state of Arkansas long term, and not just short-term gratification.
Okay, well, we'll talk a little bit more about the governor's debate between Mike Ross and Asa Hutchinson with Jessica DeLoach and Alice Stewart. I'm David Goins. You're watching Capitol View on Sunday morning.
I found a happy space, somewhere to call our own, a happy little place, and all starts with you.
After-school snacking should be fun and nutritious, which is why we put whole grain first in every General Mills Big G cereal. What matters most should always come first. General Mills, look for the Big G. It means goodness first.
Aladdin Rugs and Home Decor is now open in West Little Rock, and with our recent North Little Rock expansion, we have hundreds more rugs in stock. Browse contemporary and traditional rugs in all shapes and sizes, starting at $99, along with the latest styles and trends in home decor. You can find fun and funky or elegant and beautiful all in one place with excellent customer service. New designs of wallpaper are in stock. Aladdin Rugs and Home Decor in North Little Rock on JFK, and our new location at Markham and Chenal in West Little Rock behind Luby's. Come by today.
Watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
All right, and Friday night talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas. Alice Stewart and Jessica DeLoach rejoining us, kind of breaking down the governor's debate between Mike Ross and Asa Hutchinson. We talked about the apologize to my wife line.
Right.
I'm going to start with you, Alice. Was there a moment that you feel either candidate was at their strongest? What was that, from your estimation?
I think, I'll say this, I think takeaways. I think Asa Hutchinson, when he said don't be so defensive about flip-flopping on your support for Nancy Pelosi, I think that'll make it in the news. I think Mike Ross, his takeaway and his reinforcing the message of his mom and dad and being down home in Arkansas was good. I think it took a little bit away. I understand what he was doing when he was taking, as Asa thought, a little bit more time. When he said, "Do you want me to slow down? Am I talking too fast for you?" I thought that was a little condescending, but I think he was strong and personable and showed good contrast.
Sure, and if you whatever stock you take in the polls, if you look at the NBC News Marist poll, the most recent one, Ross is behind, so he's going to be maybe a little more aggressive. Jessica,
sure.
kind of maybe your one thing you'll remember from this debate, if anything.
Oh, sure. No, I loved how Mike Ross pointed out this duality with Asa Hutchinson as a candidate. You have the Washington Asa, you have the Arkansas Asa, and he was able to point out on several occasions, you said this, but you did this. For instance, with the minimum wage. You say you're for it now, you voted against it when you had the opportunity to raise it when you were in Congress. You want to talk about how you can continue on with the Affordable Care Act or the private option in the state, but you won't clearly commit to it.
Where was the talk to independence? I mean, it sounded like most of what they were saying were kind of rallying the base. Was the independent for Asa? Was it this middle income income tax cut? Is that where the independents are that he's trying to get?
Absolutely. Well, him saying, reinforcing throughout the debate, I'm here to help and support middle class Arkansans and help to create jobs and improve education and make their lives better. With Mike Ross, I feel he appealed to independents when he talked about working across the aisle. I'm an independent, bipartisan conservative, but then he continued to embrace Mike Beebe so closely. I think that will certainly help him with his base, but talking about being a bipartisan, independent was key. And to your point of Mike Ross saying, are you the Washington candidate or the Arkansas? That's playing off Jason Tolbert's piece on which Mike Ross will come to the debate.
We are almost out of time. 10 seconds, your final impression.
Why not embrace Mike Beebe? He won every county in the state when he ran for office.
I think both candidates have to a certain extent.
You do.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right, Jessica DeLoach, Alice Stewart, thanks so much for hanging out on the Sunday morning, Friday night Capitol View edition.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Well, that is it for this show. Don't forget, you can stay up to date with Arkansas politics by following us on Twitter at Capitol View AR. We know you already do. Download the Capitol View smartphone app in the iTunes App Store and Google Play. That's it for this show. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
There's one night of television
This is what you dream for.
that's a must-see. NBC Monday.
Aren't we confident today?
I'm confident every day.
That may be the best audition that I have ever heard.
I'm not going to let anything happen to you.
TV's #1 show, The Voice, and last season's #1 new drama, The Blacklist. It's must-see Monday here on NBC.
Nature Valley Crunchy Granola Bars give you energy from 1/3 of your daily whole grains. So 1/3 of this commercial is dedicated to what you could do with all that energy. Energy for getting dizzy at the beach.
My mornings are definitely not routine, and that can take a lot of energy.
Nature Valley Breakfast Biscuits. 4 biscuits, 26 grams of whole grains that give you the energy to help keep you going.
I love Nature Valley Breakfast Biscuits.
With 5 perfectly sweetened whole grains, you can't help but see the good.
Look for Big G cereals with money-saving offers on these breakfast favorites and give your budget a boost. During the Denver Mattress Fall Clearance Sale, the time to save is now.
For a limited time, save big on this ultra comfy Green Choice Memory Foam mattress. Plus, Denver Mattress carries the best selection of the best mattress brands. Quality, service, selection, and value. Why shop anywhere else? Denver Mattress, your Tempur-Pedic elite retailer inside for